Hello, and welcome to How to Create and Present a Poster for a Professional Conference. My name is Dr. Alan Lipscomb, and I am going to be talking about how do we develop and create that perfect professional presentation to present at conferences. So let's go ahead. I want to start off with a quote. So the quote is, "It takes intelligence, even brilliance, to condense and focus information into a clear, simple presentation that will be read and remembered," end quote. This is something that really takes consistency. It takes a level of intentionality to really condense and concise what you are trying to convey to the audience, right? To those who will be reading and seeing and viewing your presentation. So why do we submit a poster? Well, it's an opportunity to effectively share research results and engage in scientific dialogue with our peers, with our colleagues, with scholars, and community members. Also, it allows for opportunity to receive feedback that can help us refine our research and also prepare for publications or finalizing our research project. So the planning of the poster presentation, you want to review the instructions and the specific requirements that is set out by maybe your professor or the conference organizers so that you know what the requirements are for your poster, right? You also want to consider, who is my audience? Is my audience my peers, other students, right? Is my audience other professors and instructors? Are they within my discipline? Are they outside of my discipline? Is it multidisciplinary, right? Because that's going to help you tailor your presentation to that specific audience who's going to be viewing your poster presentation. Also, know what your budget is. And what I mean by that is many times we have to, right? You will have to fund your poster, right? To create and develop your poster. Now, there are times where you get certain scholarships or grants or funding that will fund your poster, right? It'll pay for printing costs and things like that. So you want to know, what is your budget? I encourage folks to do research on the front end around how much does it cost to print a poster, and then where are some places where I can print and get my poster printed for a reasonable cost. You also want to keep the messaging around what you're presenting, right? Your poster presentation, you want to keep it simple. Why? Because you want anybody who is viewing or reading your poster to be able to track and follow along and understand what it is that you are trying to highlight in your presentation. So prior to the presentation, you also want to get feedback from professors. You want to get feedback from your mentors and your peers. Have them review it. Have them look at it. Does it make sense? Does it flow? What about the aesthetics of it, right? We're going to talk about that in a moment. How do we convey it in such a way where it's not so busy, where folks don't know where to direct their attention on your poster? So organizing the content. So this is how you are to set up your poster. You can use columns, and columns are used to flow left to right, right? Like you are reading a book, reading a paper, right? Left to right. You want to use headings and subheadings, right? Introduction, literature review, abstract, methods, right? You want to allow for those subheadings and headings to help people flow from left to right. You can also use arrows or numbers to direct where necessary. So if you want them to start off with your abstract, that section, right? That column, that area will say 1- abstract, right? 2- intro, 3- literature review, so on and so forth. You want to use white blank spaces creatively. So what I like to often do is put maybe like some images or some tables or some diagrams or charts in those areas on my poster where it's kind of blank, so long as it corresponds with that particular section, okay? You use colors if it's in your budget. You can use colors to make it stand out, right? To allow your poster to pop so that if people are walking by viewing your poster, it captures their attention. So the components of your research poster, of course, you want to have your title. You want to make it simple, right? But you also want to make it attractive for folks. You want to clinch people, right? Get their attention. You want to include the authors below your title, and I'll show you some examples of this. And you can add footnotes for the affiliations of the authors, right? So if they're here at Cal State University Northridge, then it's already going to be implied that by having Cal State University Northridge, and then of course your particular department and or college there. You also want to have the abstract, and the abstract summarizes the research project. It includes your study's objectives, the design, your results, conclusions, recommendations, so on and so forth. You also want to have the introduction section. It includes the rationale and importance of this particular study. You want to state the hypothesis or research question that was tested and or that was explored in this particular study. With your method, you want to provide sufficient information to judge, so that folks can judge, right, the validity of the study, the value of the study, the contribution of the study. You also want to include the sample size, the study design, data collection, and also your analytic method, right? You also want to include the outcome and or exposure measures that you utilized. You want to have your results. Present only the key finding using mainly tables and figures. This goes back to what I was touching on earlier. You want to make sure it's simple and that people can follow along. So you are not copying and pasting your entire results section, your entire method section. You're going to make it really concise, just the key points of each of those sections, okay? Conclusion. Interpret your results in the context of your study as well as the literature, right? How does this contribute to the literature, right? What are some additional things that needs to be explored or built upon, right? Maybe your study identifies some key findings that suggest further research should be done. You want to identify what that is in your conclusion section. So some technical considerations. Posters should be easily seen from at least 3 feet away from your poster. Why? You want folks to be able to read it, right? You want your font styles to be easily read, right? So there are some font styles that tend to work good, right? This is Arial, this is Times New Roman. So these are some good font styles. It's not the only ones that you can use, but these are some of the more common ones that you can use. The biggest thing is make sure people can read it. Again, 3 feet away. Keep the color scheme system and consistent throughout your poster, okay? Want to make sure it flows, want to make sure it's not so busy where people don't know what section to focus on, etc. So here are some recommended font sizes. For your title, 72-point font. Headings, 36 to 48-point fonts. Your text, at least 24-point font. For charts and tables, 24-point charts. Of course, you can play around with this, okay? You can play around with it a little bit, depending on how large or how long your titles, your headings and things are. But this is a good kind of starting point when you are doing your font sizes. So you want to choose the right kinds of charts. And again, this goes back to what I was touching on earlier, where you have blank white spaces in those sections, right? So you can use some charts and tables and things like that. So chart type, we have bar charts, as this is best used to show comparisons in your study. Horizontal bars, only used to show times, okay? Line charts illustrates trends that you've noticed. Pie charts, relationship to whole, like big picture, right? Percentages, 50%, 75%. That can be illustrated through a pie chart. And then text. This is the last resort, right? The last resort is to just type it out, right? But I encourage you to try to use charts. Again, it's easy to understand and easy to read, especially if it's a multidisciplinary audience, right? So printing considerations. Sometimes it's helpful to leave a white border for push pins or thumbtacks that you may need to put your posters up on a board that's provided to you by the conference, right? Sometimes they'll ask that you bring your own easels. Sometimes they will provide you with an easel. Sometimes they don't even say print it out. They'll say bring it on a USB, and they have actual monitors set up in the room where you're going to be presenting your poster so that you can just upload it through a USB and it'll project on an individual screen for you. Remember to spell check. Check every inch. Check it again. Have somebody else check it and look at it. Ask a colleague to proofread the poster before you print the poster, okay? These things can be very helpful for you. Some practical tips for posters. Again, I can't say this enough. Keep it simple. Remember to spell check. Don't use all capitals throughout your poster, right? All capital letters. Bold is used only to emphasize something. Italics to de-emphasize something. Use color sparingly, but you can be creative. And yes, you can use images as well. Pre-poster presentation tips. You want to arrive at that venue early, right? At least 45 minutes, right, to an hour early to set up, to kind of rehearse it a little bit, get a feel of the lay of the land a little bit. You want to hang it neatly, right? You want to do all the things before they start letting folks into the venue to view it. Some folks have prepared miniature versions of their poster, and they've created like QR codes that are on their actual posters, so that as folks would like to take something or have something to reference later, because maybe they really loved your poster, or maybe they're judging your poster and they want to go back and read a little bit more closely, they can just scan the QR code that's on your poster, and it opens up a little like PDF version, if you will, of your poster. So that's helpful too. Presenting the poster as a visual aid, you don't want to read verbatim from it, right? You want to use it as a reference, so practice, rehearse it, so you can just look at it, glance, highlight certain things, but you're still engaging with your audience about your poster, okay? To use the graphics to support your points when telling the story. This is why graphics, charts, and bars and things like that is so helpful, because you can just point to it, right? Or direct folks' attentions to it. You want to prepare a 2-minute spiel about your research and a 5-minute, right? Why? Because some folks may not have a lot of time, right? And so you want to give them the quick and dirty kind of 2-minute version. Some folks are interested, and so they're hanging out for a while at your poster. So then you give them the 5-minute version of your poster, okay? Or the 10-minute, depending on how long they hang out. Here are some poster templates, just to give you an idea. Of course, you want to go by what they indicate and what they tell you, and or what your research advisor tells you. Okay, so again, these are just some templates and some examples of what I was just going over before. Here's another one. Again, just to give you the idea of the kind of flow, if you will. All right, a few more. Again, just give you an idea. Kind of highlighting the different pieces, the different sections, right, of your poster presentation. It's like a blank one. You can Google this and find one of these kind of blank templates. If you want to sketch it out first, kind of write it out first, and then apply it. Again, just different ways that you can map it out. And then finally, I want to show you one of my posters that I presented on at a conference recently, right? So you can see I'm using images, right? You can see I have my sections, they're clear, the abstract, the objectives, the methods, the conclusion. I have references. I have a picture image of my workbook based on this research, right? Very clear, creative. Here's an actual picture of me presenting it. And yes, I had a t-shirt made. Again, capturing my audience, engaging my audience around my research. So oftentimes questions come up regarding, okay, this is good information. This is great. Where should I start? Start by reading over the instructions from the conference or the symposium that you're going to be presenting at, or even your class, right? If you're presenting this in class, if you're presenting this at a conference, you want to read over what are the guidelines, what are the instructions, how much time do you have, when is it due by, do they need you to upload your poster before you present it, do they need you to arrive at a certain time? Okay. And then connect with your research advisor so that they can give you some additional guidance as well. I want to thank you all so much for viewing this presentation on creating a professional poster presentation. I hope it was helpful, and I wish you all the best as you present. Thank you. Take care.